After nearly 3 weeks of no load shedding, Eskom has implemented Stage 2 power cuts from 5 a.m. this morning. Stage 2 will last until 4 p.m. when Stage 3 kicks in until tomorrow morning. The struggling power utility is attributing the cuts to a loss of 6 generating units and a projected increase in electricity demand. Eskom says its teams are working to restore just under 5,000 megawatts of generating capacity by the end of the week. Megawatt Park adds that it will closely monitor the system and communicate any changes. Now, to help us with the possible outlook for the year, I'm joined by Mthunzi Luthuli, an energy expert. Babu Luthuli, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
So, South Africans had a bit of a reprieve over the festive season. Are you surprised that we're now going back to Stage 2 and 3?
Yes, I'm definitely surprised. Many of us, in fact, in the energy space are surprised. Mainly because in January, the demand for power is still quite low. It's only the 2nd of January. We shouldn't really be having load shedding. Eskom has given 3 reasons why we've had to return to why load shedding has returned. One, they said, as you pointed out earlier, that they lost 6 units with a total combined capacity of 3.1 gigawatts. But they also said that, which was the 2nd reason, that they were supposed to return 3 units with a combined capacity of 2.1 gigawatts. And they did not manage to do that. So they are late in returning those units. The combined effect of these, plus the fact that, as they say, the demand is going up for electricity, those 3 reasons then led to load shedding. Now, if we look at this last reason, demand going up.
Yes.
It's not. I checked what the load forecast was for the evening peaks this week.
Okay.
It's around 23 gigawatts. Now, 23 gigawatts is low. If you look at South Africa's peak demand in the winter months, it's around 32 gigawatts.
And what would be our average?
Our average will be around 26.
Okay.
Yeah. So the peak at 32, at some point we were able to cater for a peak of 32 gigawatts. Now they are telling us we can't actually provide for a peak of 23 gigawatts, which is almost 10 gigawatts lower than the winter peak. So this is terrible. It's not. So that figure of 23 is not particularly high.
Okay.
The problem is the poor performance of the fleet. That's actually the problem.
Speaking of the poor performance of the fleet and the possibility of people saying that this entire thing is deliberate, is it that complicated for us to be able to bring back generating units back online in terms of the maintenance, the opportunity maintenance that was taken in December, or is it that complex for us to get to where we should be?
Katlego is not, okay? So many people within the energy space are slowly but surely coming to the conclusion that this whole thing is actually staged.
Okay.
That this is deliberate. And the reason why it's being done is to try and justify the entrance of private players into the generation sector. So what you have to do, you have to prove that Eskom is actually not managing to provide the country with electricity, and therefore we must bring in the private sector, and the private sector will save us. Coal power generation is a 19th century technology. It's old technology. So it's mature, it's well understood. There is no reason why we should not be able to fix the units that we say need to be fixed. There's absolutely no reason. Okay. So from a technical perspective. Right. So the only conclusion that you can come to is that this is deliberate. Some people will dispute what I'm saying now, but it's definitely what a lot of us are starting to think.
But
just to put things into perspective.
Okay.
Eskom's total installed capacity is said to be around 46, 47 gigawatts. They are failing to provide electricity at a peak demand of 23. That's less than half the installed capacity. That means half of the generation units at any point in time are out of service. That's very, very poor performance by whatever standard.
The issue of our infrastructure aging is not good enough of an excuse with regards to how much energy is being supplied.
No, it's not good excuse. So, okay, our coal plants have varying in terms of the number of years that they've been in service. They vary, okay. But even the oldest can still operate quite well, in fact. There are power stations around the world that are older than our oldest power stations, and they operate well with an energy availability factor of over 70%. With younger power stations, we fail to achieve an EAF of just 60%. So that tells you that something is wrong. It's not really a technical problem. The problem is somewhere else.
Speaking of the problem being somewhere else, there's been, and could this be a realistic criticism in terms of this being deliberate in order to unseat the current governing party with regards to the elections that are upcoming in 2024 and not Eskom keeping the lights on for all these years?
Yeah. Look, I don't think the ANC would want to unseat itself because they're in charge of Eskom, and so that is really not a good reason in my view. I think the reason is just plain and simple. You have to justify bringing in the private sector. If Eskom is performing well, you have no good reason to bring in the private sector. People would say, look, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And so the whole idea really is, unfortunately, the unintended consequence is that the election results will point to the fact that the ANC might be unseated.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that's an unintended consequence rather than a deliberate
one.
Yeah.
Eskom released a statement earlier today saying that they are pleased to have come to a full load rejection test for Unit 1 in the Koeberg nuclear power station. What impact will this have on the energy supply in the immediate term, given that Unit 5 of Kusile as well has now been synchronized, and also the other units that have been put in place in terms of Medupi? Could we see an incremental possibility of having more electricity over time with all of these units now slowly but surely seeming to come to life?
Yeah. So, Katlego, this was our hope, really, that as Kusile, gets completed, and the units one by one are being synchronized and brought into commercial operation, that the electricity situation would improve. But this doesn't seem to be happening. Okay, one unit, I think it was Unit 2, around September, October, was brought back into commercial operation.
Yes.
We were very happy about that. And there was a projection that 2 more units would be brought back online before the end of the year. That it didn't quite happen according to plan. Unit 5, I think, was only brought back online on the 31st of December. Okay. So, and what I'd said at the time was that if this trend continues, we should generally see an improvement in the energy outlook and load shedding outlook. Because those units, especially the Kusile units, they're quite big. 800 units rated output power, even though when you actually start operating, you may only get 720 megawatts for various reasons. But still, it's a lot of power that you're bringing onto the system. So we're hoping that, but what is offsetting that progress are the other older units that don't seem to be performing as Eskom projects. Okay. So like they say, they lost 6 units. I mean, you just lose 6 units like that. It means that their maintenance program, what they call the generation recovery plan, it doesn't seem like it's working. The Koeberg unit will definitely help, but unfortunately what's going to be happening is that we're going to be taking off the other unit for the steam replacement of the steam generator,
yes,
as we did with the first unit. So that means we're not going to have another 900 megawatts for quite some time.
Yes. Unfortunately, Babu Luthuli, we have run out of time. I was really hoping to get your predictions for 2024, but the sentiment that I'm getting there is that we're still going to be in the dark for quite some time in the year to come.
I think that's what we should prepare ourselves for. Rather that and be pleasantly surprised if things turn out to be different.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and for your inputs this afternoon. That's Mthunzi Luthuli, an energy expert, speaking of how we are to see 2024 with regards to the energy availability factor.